Signing day already? The season just ended. What are we doing? Well, that's what it is. It's signing day, National Letter of Intent signing day, the day all the recruits sign their letters of intent to commit to their school be official, or at least as official and binding as it can possibly be. We know there's always ways out of these things, but for the most part, I think guys stick with their letters of intent, as it were. It's annoying to pluralize letter there, but it doesn't matter because this is the big day. It's the biggest day in the recruiting calendar. Used to be bigger, used to be more exciting, used to be more build up when we were building up to the first Wednesday in February, or we were building up to the third Wednesday in December. Now we pushed it back to the first Wednesday in December, but it doesn't matter because signing day is here, and the fax machines, I don't know if they actually use fax machines anymore. I think they do it digitally, but we're still going to say the fax machines. The fax machines will be rolling or started rolling at 7 a.m. Depending on when you watch this video, they might already be going, and or if you watch it before 7 a.m., it hasn't started yet. But either way, today is the day. Who is Pitt signing? Who's joining the Panthers in this class? What do they got? I think it's a pretty good group. A lot of intriguing guys. Let's talk about it here on the signing day edition of the Morning Pitt. YouTube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Yeah, it's signing day today. All the recruits signing with Pitt, and it's a class of 21 prospects. So you've probably been following along. But it's funny because as we started really working on all our signing day content over the last few days, I'm working on a bunch, Jim's working on a bunch, and we're putting it all together. Yesterday we ran a signing day primer that kind of listed all the guys that are signing with Pitt. And it occurred to me, like most of them, almost all of them committed at least 6 months ago. It's been a long time, and they've all pretty much stayed in the class. They haven't really lost guys. It's been a pretty solid class, and it's pretty much all held together. There's maybe one that we're keeping an eye on to kind of see if he ends up signing, but they all committed a long time ago, and a lot has happened since then. If you go back to mid-June, you think about everything you've seen since then. You've seen the backyard brawl and the Louisville losses. You've seen the switch to Mason Heinchel. You've seen his emergence, Jakarian Turner, the Georgia Tech game, the Notre Dame and Miami game, like everything. I mean, like a whole lot has happened since June, and you might have forgotten about some of these guys. You might have, or you might have sort of slipped off your radar of who they are or how they fit in or what they are and what kind of players. So let's get a quick rundown. What does Pitt's class look like? Who are they bringing in? How do they fit? And what's the overall take on this class? And it starts at the top with two quarterbacks. Pitt's got two quarterbacks from the state of Texas coming in. Pretty unique to have two quarterback recruits in one class. Even more unique to have two quarterback recruits coming to Pitt from the state of Texas. And even more unique is the fact that one of them, Angelo Renda, committed on, I think, January 22nd or February 22nd. I think it was January. I forget. That same day, they offered the other one, Corey Daly, who didn't commit on the spot, took his official visit over the summer and then committed. And both of those guys stuck. And when they had two quarterbacks committed, I really wondered if they would end up signing two, but it looks like they're going to. And both of these guys had outstanding senior seasons. Angelo Renda at South Lake Carroll, a powerhouse program. They're 13-0 this season. They're still playing. He's already thrown for 3,700 yards, 39 touchdowns, and just 7 interceptions. He also ran for 460 yards and 8 touchdowns. He averaged more than 8 yards per carry. And then Daly is a big 6'6" quarterback at Seguin, Texas. Not quite a powerhouse program. I think they went 5-5 this year, but he threw for 2,900 yards, 22 touchdowns, 4 picks. He also had a decent rushing performance as well. They're both really good athletes. They can both move around. Daly is a multi-sport standout. He plays basketball, he plays baseball, he plays football, and he's got kind of the frame that you can see him playing hoops, being a really good I don't know what position you would play in high school, but in college, you'd be like a wing, a small forward type at 6'6". Renda's smaller, built a little bit more like, a Mason Heinchel type. But he's, like Heinchel, he's an improviser. He's a guy who makes a lot of plays and not a lot of mistakes. And like I say, he's got his team at 13-0. They're rolling through the playoffs and heading toward a state championship. Daly's season is over at only 5-5. But I think it was a case where he really he was everything for his team. And they both look like really good prospects. Somebody on the message board suggested that maybe Angelo Renda has the higher floor and Corey Daly might have the higher ceiling. Renda just operates that offense at South Lake Carroll so well. He just knows what he's doing. He's able to move an offense and operate an offense a little bit like Mason Heichel, I think. Whereas Corey Daly has these physical skills with his size, a big arm. He can run a little bit. I think it probably sets the ceiling a little bit higher for him. But they both look really good. And to be honest, I'm surprised that Pitt held on to both of them. Corey Daly elevated to a 4-star prospect by the end of the recruiting cycle. Which kind of reflects what the evaluators see in his film. And Renda, probably the biggest thing holding him back is his height. He's not the biggest guy, but he can make plays and he can run an offense. And as we saw this fall, if you can run the offense, if you can operate the offense, sometimes that can be a separator, and maybe your biggest strength is your ability to just, football IQ and understanding what you're trying to do on the field and doing it. Offensive skill guys, Damon Ferguson is the running back in the class. He's a 4-star recruit from Baltimore. Over 3 seasons in high school, he ran for 2,900 yards and 36 touchdowns. Explosive guy, pass catcher, just can do everything. And he's another guy that, he reminds you of some of the best things you see Jakarian Turner do, some of the best things you see Desmond Reed do. Just a really good, exciting, explosive running back prospect. The offensive recruiting hasn't always been great at Pitt under Pat Narduzzi, but I have to think offensive skill guys are going to look at what opportunities there are on this offense, whether receivers or running backs, and say, I want to be a part of that. Damon Ferguson did, and so did these receivers, and Pitt had 4 committed. Demetrius McCray is a playmaker at the First Academy in Orlando. I really like McCray. I like him for a lot of reasons. One, he had 940 all-purpose yards this year, 18 games over the last 2 seasons. He has 65 catches for 1,300 yards and 13 touchdowns. He's a wide receiver prospect. What I really like, he goes to the First Academy in Orlando, and First Academy in Orlando was ruled ineligible for the postseason this year because they had some player eligibility issues, and they lost guys. Guys transferred because they wanted to have an opportunity to play in the postseason. Demetrius McCray did not do that. He stuck with his team. He stuck with his school, and I think they struggled this year because they lost guys. I think they lost their quarterback, and he stuck with it though. And they didn't have a great season. I think they had a big upset late in the year, but it wasn't a great season. It was probably, he probably did not enjoy his senior year of high school football as much as he could have if he had transferred like some of his teammates did, but he didn't. He showed loyalty. He stayed with his school and still ended up, like I say, he had almost 1,000 all-purpose yards this season. Playmaking wide receiver, just like Dylan Wester, another playmaking wide receiver, a speedy receiver from Florida. Like you look at Pitt's 4 wide receiver commitments, 3 of them are from Florida and 1's from Georgia. Will you take that? Yeah. I'll take my chances on speedy playmakers from Florida every day. And Demetrius McCray is one. Dylan Wester is another guy who's committed, a smaller receiver. He's from Sarasota, 43 catches for 756 yards. His average is 18 yards per catch, has 12 touchdowns this season. And then the other one's Brian Hamilton. He's from the Tampa area, 700 yards, 8 touchdowns this year. He might be one to keep an eye on today. Not entirely sure that he's going to sign with Pitt. He took an official visit to Colorado during the season. After that, he still told me he was committed to Pitt, but he also, in the last, 2 weeks, picked up an offer from Virginia Tech. Hello, James Franklin, going after Pat Narduzzi's commitments. This is the only one that, as far as we can tell, this is the only one that Franklin has targeted since he got to Virginia Tech. Not really sure what's going to happen with Brian Hamilton. He may or may not sign with Pitt today. But then the other receiver that they do have committed, because like I say, they have 4 in this class, and 3 of them, Demetrius McCray, Dylan Wester, Brian Hamilton, they're not all the same guy. They're all unique and different, have their own skill sets, but they're all smaller, explosive, fast receivers. The 4th guy who's in the class is Jaden Dunbar, and he's from Georgia. I forget what the school is, Thomas County Central or something like that, but he is different. He's 6'5", playing for a 13-0 team. He's caught 41 passes for 679 yards. That's almost 17 yards per catch and 11 touchdowns. Pitt hasn't really recruited a big receiver in the past few years. Like we haven't seen those kinds of guys come to Pitt or get recruited by Pitt under this coaching staff. Mostly they've gone for these smaller, faster guys. You look at the class they brought in last year with Bryce Yates and Tony Kinsler and Cam Sapp. Not one of them is taller than maybe 6 foot. You look at the transfers of Raphael Williams and Sincere Lee. Obviously, they brought in Deuce Spann. He would be the one exception as a taller receiver that this staff has added. But they haven't really done a whole lot of that. Jaden Dunbar is that guy, and he looks really good. I think he could be the kind of guy who could contribute, maybe even contribute early as a pretty good big wide receiver in Pitt's offense, which, again, they don't have a lot of size, but he might be a guy, he could change that a little bit. And then they have a tight end, Wyatt Villarreal. He plays for a 13-0 Salina High School team in Texas. He averaged more than 17 yards per catch last year. He plays as a wide receiver in high school, but he's going to be a tight end at Pitt, and I think he's the kind of tight end they want. Like we've talked often about how Pitt's tight ends don't really have many pass blocking snaps. They don't stay into block much on passing plays. They run routes most of the time. A dozen or fewer pass block snaps for Gavin Bartholomew last year. Similar numbers this year with guys like Justin Holmes and Malachi Thomas. And they like that big, they like the tight end to be a big receiver. An athletic guy who can get mismatches against linebackers and make plays. And Wyatt Villarreal looks like he can be that kind of guy. Along the offensive line, they've got 3 linemen committed. John Curran from Pine Richland is an interior line prospect. He impressed the coaches at their prospect camp and earned his offer and committed shortly thereafter. Nicholas Howard is a 4-star guy, another prospect coming in from Texas. Pitt was the first Power 4 school to offer him. A few others got on board, Arizona, Houston, Kansas State, but he committed to Pitt on his official visit. He's 6'5", 285, could play guard or tackle. I think he'll end up at tackle. But, I think you like to have that kind of versatility. And then Mike Vanderord, a guy from Ohio, big kid, 6'7", 280 pounds. He's definitely a tackle. He's the biggest lineman in this class. He's the biggest player in this class. He is a huge human being, and he's got a really high ceiling, as an offensive line prospect. Flip over to defense. Pitt's got 3 defensive linemen in this class, 2 ends and a tackle, and 2 of those 3 guys are local. Reston Lehman from Peters Township, multi-year starter at Peters Township, multi-year fabulous 22 selection by the Post-Gazette. This year he had 8.5 sacks, 5 forced fumbles, and 2 interceptions. Plays both ways, stand-up guy on defense, tight end on offense. He'll be a hand-in-the-ground defensive end at Pitt. And then the other defensive end actually comes from out of state. He comes from Virginia. It's Joshua Pittman. He was formerly committed to Virginia Tech, reopened his commitment after Brent Pry got fired, and ended up taking an official visit to Pitt for the NC State game and committed to Pitt shortly thereafter. He plays as a stand-up edge rusher in high school, but he's 6'3", 225. He'll be a defensive end at Pitt. This year he had 21 tackles for loss, 11 sacks, and 2 interceptions, one of which they tried to throw like a dump off or a screen pass, and he just skied for it and went 42 yards for a pick 6. Pretty interesting prospect there and a good reinforcement along the defensive line. And then Lincoln Hoke is the defensive tackle in the class. That name sounds familiar. It should. He's the son of former Pittsburgh Steeler Chris Hoke. He plays at North Allegheny. Like Reston Lehman, he's been on the Fabulous 22 the past 2 years. He's got 80 tackles, 12 tackles for loss, and 7 sacks this season. Just a playmaking defensive tackle. Really gets after it and puts up some big numbers. They have 3 defensive linemen. I already said that. They have 3 linebackers in this recruiting class, and I like all these guys. I think this might be the strongest position in the class. I think these guys are really, really good, and this could be a linebacker class that rivals, what they had 2 years ago. I guess it would be 3 classes ago in Jordan Bass, Rasheem Biles, and Braylon Lovelace. And I shouldn't have said Bass first. He's the guy who left, but he was a really promising linebacker prospect. And it's like those guys. It's like Bass and Biles and Lovelace and Kyle Lewis as well. These athletic outside linebackers, and I shouldn't just say outside. I mean, these guys can play inside too. They can play middle linebacker. But these athletic linebackers who almost could pass for safeties, but they are great fits at linebacker in Pitt's defense. Isaiah Simmons is a guy who comes from Virginia. He's a playmaker, puts up big numbers, big hits, sideline to sideline type of guy. All these guys go sideline to sideline, but he's a great fit for the star position. Kind of reminds you of a Kyle Lewis type. Marcus Jennings comes in from Cass Tech in Detroit. That's a big-time school that always turns out big-time prospects. And what's notable about him, I mean, he's a playmaker, like all these guys are, but he had an offer from Michigan late in the process, pretty much turned it down, said he's sticking with Pitt. I think you can appreciate that. And then Desmond Johnson, Miami Northwestern, another kid coming in from Florida. He's a sideline-to-sideline guy. He's a good tackler, makes plays in space, can drop into coverage. He plays middle linebacker, but also will drop. He'll play outside. He'll cover the slot. And he's got Miami Northwestern 12-0 on the way to the state semifinals. He's a big-time player there. Isaiah Simmons, Marcus Jennings, Desmond Johnson. I love these three linebackers for Pitt. They just fit the defense really well, and this looks like a really good linebacking. They've just recruited linebackers so well over the past 3 or 4 years. Just done an outstanding job, and it looks like these guys, I think these are three of the best prospects in the class. They're not rated like that, but I think they are. You get into the defensive backfield, 1 corner and 2 safeties. Kentrell McCray coming in from Tampa. Cornerback prospect. He's the lone corner in the class. Kind of a quiet guy. Don't hear a lot from him, but you definitely see him on the field. He had 5 interceptions this season for Gaither High School. And then the 2 safeties, one's a local guy, Deron Barksdale. Should be a fan favorite coming in from Steel Valley. He's got he's a different type of player from Cruz Brookins and Paris Ford. But as a Steel Valley guy who just did everything on both sides of the ball and then is coming to Pitt to play safety, he's following that path as well. Deron Barksdale rushed for more than 2,000 yards this season. He had 900 rushing yards last year because he got overshadowed by his older brother, Donald Barksdale, who had 2,000 rushing yards. But you look at Deron Barksdale with 3,000 rushing yards over the last 2 years. He's a guy, his freshman year in 2023, or 2022, excuse me, everybody thought he was going to be one of the next big guys coming out of the Whippeal. But then his sophomore year, he got hurt and missed most of the season. And that, I think, hurt his recruitment. I think a lot of schools backed off. He needed to show what he could do. And he had a pretty good year last year, like I said, but his brother was the main rusher, and he was still coming back from the injury. And you go into the spring this year, Pitt, I think, was pretty convinced, but they wanted to see him in person. They wanted to meet him in person and make sure he could still move. Came in. They liked what they saw. They offered him. He committed and stayed committed through this season where, like I say, he did everything on both sides of the ball. Big part of Steel Valley getting into the Whippeal championship game. More than 2,000 rushing yards. Just a playmaker all over the place. And a kid who just loves football. And you like those guys. I mean, it reminds you of Cruz Brookins. It's the only thing that matters at Cruz Brookins is playing football. And I think the only thing that matters to Deron Barksdale is playing football. And then the other guy, the other safety in the class, Isaac Patterson. He's the number 5 safety in the state of Ohio. He was at Westerville South High School. He had 100 tackles over the last 2 years. He's going to play the field safety position at Pitt. He's a rangy guy, can move around a lot. I think he'll be a good fit back there at safety. And if you pair these guys together, Isaac Patterson and Deron Barksdale, and you got Patterson dropping back as the field safety and Barksdale coming up and getting 110 tackles, stopping the run like Donovan McMillan or Cruz Brookins will, that's a pretty good match. So I like this class a lot. I really like the linebackers. I really like the receivers. I think the quarterbacks, you take 2 guys with the kind of potential that Angelo Renda and Corey Daly have, and I think you're bound to get somebody to pay off. You're bound to get one of these guys to hit, and I think there's a good chance that those guys will both be good players. If you're going to predict the future, I would predict that Corey Daly and Angelo Renda both have good college careers at separate schools because I think they're good enough that when separation happens, one will go to another school and find success. So I think they'll be I think they'll be good. I think this is a good class. I like a lot of the pieces they added, and I like a lot of the fits, particularly on defense, particularly in the back 7. So Pat Narduzzi will have his signing day press conference today in the South Side at noon. We'll be down there for that, and we'll have video and full coverage and everything you need there and throughout the day. You want to keep up on Pitt's recruiting class? This is the place to do it. Panther-Lair.com and right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Don't forget, we'll have the live stream tonight at 8:30. Me and Jim will get together and talk with you about everything going on in everything with signing day and then wrapping up the Miami game and basketball and everything like that. So make sure you stay tuned for that as well. All right, like this video and subscribe. Hope your week is off to a great start. Enjoy signing day today, and we will catch up with you tonight for the live stream and then tomorrow for the Morning Pit right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.